Mhm. The hug that I feel now that you're giving me, I am hoping to pass on this energy to everyone in Israel that I know that needs this hug and needs this, and I'm just gonna try and pass your energy through, and just know that it's extremely meaningful. I'm starting with a picture that a friend of mine named Ilan Lorenzi, he's a photographer, he took at Kibbutz Be'eri on the day that he took it actually 3 days later, but he went to this area on the day that everything happened and then returned again and again 3 times. We're friends, he's a photographer, we did photography tours together. He went there when it was extremely dangerous. I don't know how he had the guts or nerves or he's pretty crazy that he went there on that day. Well, there were still hundreds of terrorists all around. And when you look at it at first, it looks like a broken window. It was taken in Kibbutz Be'eri, one of the kibbutzes that the people who were murdered there is the highest amount, the people who were kidnapped is the highest amount. But when you read a sticker on this broken glass, it says in Hebrew Shalom Achshav, and Shalom Achshav means peace now, and it's the name of a movement that was established in 1977, and it was there to motivate the peace process with the Palestinians. Since then, they were very prominent, especially during the talks in 1993-4 with the Palestinians, the Oslo Accords, and ever since they're coming from the left-wing Israeli society. They've been trying to promote this as much as possible. Many of the people who live in these kibbutzes were part of this movement. Some of them were, peace activists that started different peace organization, like a woman called Viviana Silver, who started Women Wage Peace, and an Israeli-Arab center in the Negev of cooperation, and another couple that was kidnapped who used to drive Gazans to hospitals in Israel every day, and many others. The title that Ilan, my friend, gave to this photograph is "The Dream and Its Shattering." And, in Hebrew, we have a saying, Hachalom is the translation. Hachalom v'shivro, the dream and its shattering. It's coming from a sentence in the Bible. But chalom is dream, and in Hebrew, window is chalon. So chalom, chalon. And so you can also say achalon v'shivro. And I think in some ways it kind of holds a lot of the atmosphere and feeling that happened to us. Here we see a brigadier general. His name is Barak Hiram. He was interviewed to the Israeli 60 Minutes. It's called Uvda, a week after the October 7th. He's about to become the commander of the Gaza unit in the IDF. He didn't start officially his role yet, but so it happened that he was there on the ground when this attack happened. So on the ground, he was really commanding it and connecting all the troops together and dealing with this whole situation, because he was the highest rank on the ground. And in this interview, Ilana Dayan, the interviewer, is asking him, and he spoke with huge humble, and he's a very impressive person, and with all the responsibility and that he could take, and she asked him, how could this happen to us in so many levels? How could the army and the intelligence could be so wrong? How could our government could be in such misconception? How could we were in such conception as Israelis? And he answered some words that in many ways he sums up in just a few lines a lot of what was happening here pre-October 7. And he says, we wanted to feel, it's my free translation, we wanted to feel that we were a high-tech nation and didn't need to deal with the wars of the past. We insisted on shaping the enemy in a different way than it really is. As long as we look at the problems with a firm eye, we won't be surprised, as long as we don't tell ourselves stories that our enemies don't really want to destroy us. We've learned that our problems, they don't run away. they only get bigger. And it's been years that in Israel we are talking and we're saying, and the atmosphere is to the conception is that Hamas is deterred. The conception is that if only we would improve their life, we'll be able to live side by side. If only they will get suitcases with tons of money from Qatar all the time and from Europe, their economy will get better. They wouldn't have the interest to start an attack, a war, start this bloodshed. We will tolerate rockets that has started to be sent towards us since 2006, and only if it's really bad we're gonna respond, seriously. And we would tolerate the balloons that sets fire in all the fields in the south and Negev in the south near Gaza, and we would tolerate again and again. And also the feeling was that we can't just go on an operation. The world would not support it. We would never have a credit from the world. We didn't want our soldiers to. We weren't necessarily willing to pay the price. We just want to live good. We want to live normal life. We grow kids because we want to love them and be with them. And it all kind of, as you understand, blew up in our face. These are more pictures taken by Ilan. The picture of the doll is from Sderot. It's a city near the border with Gaza on the day that it happened. And the second one is from Kibbutz Be'eri, that, after the soldiers were having hours of fights against, basically, there were almost 3,000 terrorists that infiltrated Israel on that day. They kind of start to understand the atrocities. I believe you know it, but I'm just gonna repeat it. Over 1,400 Israelis that were massacred, and a fifth of them are soldiers, just a bit more than a fifth, and all the rest are civilians, are families, the women, babies, kids, old people, and a lot of young people from the music festival. So it's a lot of circles of shock and trauma that everyone is in, because almost every Israeli, or I can even say every Israeli in a way, knows someone who was murdered or kidnapped. And then starts a whole new stage of what is happening in Israel. They say in psychology that when you have this tremendous fear, people react to it in different ways. You can freeze, you can fight, your flight, can be passive, you can. So we see that big part of the Israeli society, I will get back to these maps. Big part decided to do the fight, and not necessarily the combat fight, but to do something. And then a whole stage of endless volunteer work starts here. And in the picture on the left, we see tens of thousands of Israelis that come back to Israel. In most places when there's a war, people escape from the country. Here, people are returning to Israel to join the IDF. It's young people who finished their service. They went on their trip after the army or did different things abroad. They leave everything behind, study, have a business, whatever it is, leave everything, take the first flight, the most expensive flight, and come here. The kindergarten teacher in my little one's kindergarten, her grandchild came. He was on a trip in the States. She said he bought the most expensive ticket just to take the first flight. Some tickets were, by the way, paid by people volunteered. Her grandson was injured a few days ago in Gaza in his legs, and we're now praying together that his legs will be good. He needs to go on surgery. But people are coming. These women are waiting for them, probably their family members or friends, and they're holding a sign, Yeh Tov, it will be good. And up until now, 300,000 Israelis came back to Israel from the places they were at, many of them to join the IDF, or others to just help volunteering in many other places or for different reasons. And in the picture on the right, we see a young woman from Kibbutz Kfar Aza that was also really badly attacked, hugging a soldier. He's from an elite unit called Shaldag that saved her life, and it's really survivor stories all around us all the time. I want to just show the map so we can just understand our eyes very shortly. We see on the left the map of Israel, and we see the Gaza Strip here. The map of Israel is around, the size is about the size of New Jersey. You can put all the map of Israel in the map of the US 435 times. And around the border with Gaza, around here, it's all right on the border. On the border, you have so many kibbutzes and moshavim. I know that the picture on the right is in Hebrew. I'm going to say this is Netiv HaAsara that was badly attacked. Be'eri, Re'im, what I'm pointing at now, is where the music festival was. And you know that the meaning in Hebrew of Re'im are good friends, like soulmates. That's the literal meaning of it. And there were so many bravery stories there of friends who saved their friends, or friends they didn't know. And a bit south around here is Nir Oz, who was also badly hurt. They are all up to 10 kilometers from the border. 1 kilometer is 0.7 of a mile. So if you can understand how close it is, some of them are just a mile away. And this is 20 kilometers, and we see the city of Netivot that they were infiltrated into. Sderot is here, the city of Sderot, and Ofakim. These are 3 cities that hundreds of terrorists arrived at. So this is just to kind of get the proportions. And Ofakim, the furthest, is 30 kilometers from the border. That's something like 23 miles from the border. And I'm going back to this energy of volunteering that's pretty much the only thing that people could do after this trauma. And we see just something I can't explain this in words. It's pretty much every person that I know around me that's what they do. And if it's in this picture on top to the left, this is in my city in Rehovot. Just every neighborhoods, tens of neighborhoods, WhatsApp groups collecting food either for the soldiers or either for the displaced people, because we have 250,000 displaced people who cannot live now in this border in the south with Gaza, and also cannot live in the border in the north, the borders with Lebanon, and they need a place to live. So some are in hotels, some are in houses that people gave them or hosted them in. They need food, they need clothes, they left without anything, furnitures. And if it's on the right, we see a restaurant in Jerusalem. So many restaurants just became big kitchens, and they are cooking all day long with volunteers and with food that is donated, because you need to feed the highest amount of reserves that we've had in our history at once, that the kitchens in the IDF can't cook as much, and you need to feed the displaced people. And also they give food for people who are taking care of the wounded in the hospitals. So this is happening. And in the big picture in the middle is the biggest center for volunteers. It was arranged by an organization called Brothers in Arm, in Hebrew Achim LaNeshek. And this is in a huge parking lot in Tel Aviv that they're just packing and sending to whatever need, dividing what's needed all day long since everything started. And the amazing thing was that these organizations, Brothers in Arm, and there's another group, the High Tech group, and many other groups, they were already organized and had all the infrastructure before this happened, because they were part of the protest against the judicial reform. And about all the protests and the demonstrations that were in the streets in all the 9 months prior to this event. And basically, they've created a whole infrastructure that was already organized. There were already tons of WhatsApp groups, and it was just had to be transformed into this new need. And while our government was really under a shock and they were not operating, they covered them up. And it's the people of Israel that covered up what the Israeli government couldn't do for different reasons. They were under a shock. They were a lot of the not unskilled people that were positioned there. Also, when they formed the coalition of the current government, they divided the offices in the government into so many parts so that everyone would have a job. And it was just so divided that they couldn't work together. They were not sure who's responsible for what. So, you see the people in its glory, and from a society that was so divided on October 6th, all of a sudden, you see the unity of people from all sectors, Ashkenazi, Sephardic, the rich, the poor, no matter where you're coming from, they're working, left, right, they're working together. And this is a huge thing that is happening to us right now. I would touch with another thing with volunteering. One of the biggest crises that we have is the crisis with the farming, because almost all the workers that the Israeli farmers had, and we need to understand that most of the farming is happening in the areas near the border, because in the center of Israel, we have all the cities, the Tel Aviv area and Jerusalem area, and the areas that are more open are near the borders. And this is where our food is coming from. And now all the Thai people that were working, and they're very good workers, just left. Their government called up, told them with a huge warning, go back to Thailand. And people lost all their workers in one day. And they have tons, endless crops that needs to be picked and taken care of. And there are no hands to do it. So all the Israelis, this is what they do. They just go and volunteer and pick up avocados and stuff. We see in this picture newly released women soldiers from the army, older people who are coming, people from all around Israel, soldiers that are, this is in the area near the border with Gaza. They were waiting to get into Gaza to fight, but now they have some free time, so they went and helped the farmers. The picture in the center, we see a Jewish Israeli named Itai, and we see an Arab Muslim Bedouin Israeli named Omri. They have worked before, they know each other from before. And the person that took this picture is my friend, and he said he went to volunteer, and when they met, they hugged for so long, and the Jewish guy said to Omri, I thought you were killed, because I heard that there was a Omri in the mobile shelter during all the events, and that he was killed. And Omri, the Bedouin guy, says to him, yes, I know, others thought so too. And the Jewish guy says to him, I'm so happy you're alive. And these kind of survival stories, and they're hugging and they're working together. And this leads me to the next point I want to touch on, and it's what it did and what it's doing to the relationship between Jewish Israeli and the Israeli Arabs who are Israeli citizens who live in Israel, who have an Israeli ID. They are citizens just like me, have all the rights that me and everyone around me has. The only thing that they don't have to do in terms of that is mandatory for them is to serve in the IDF. It's only up to them by choice, and most of them don't serve in the IDF. But we have about 22% of the 22% of the Israeli society who are Israeli Arabs. 85% of them are Muslim, and then half are Druze and half are, like 7.5% are Druze, 7.5% are Christian Arab. The Druze is a religion. So they're Arab, they speak Arabic in their ethnicity, but it's religion. And the Druze have been loyal to Israel completely, as many of you probably know, and they're serving in the army fully, and they go to the highest, the most elite units and the highest positions, and the two highest ranks people that we've lost in the last few days were two Druze lieutenant colonel that were killed in the battles, and that's a different story. But with the Israeli Arabs, it's been decades and decades that the Israeli Arabs are under this very serious identity crisis. They don't know who they are loyal to. Are they loyal to Israel? Are they loyal to the Palestinians living in Gaza, living in the West Bank? They are afraid to speak out loud if they feel like they feel that they are part of Israel. They've had representatives in the Israeli parliament, in the Israeli Knesset, that for years and years and years have been from the most anti-Israel edge and even hostile to Israel, and they were the people who were representing them. And when this all happened, there was this huge fear that a lot of Israeli Arabs will join the attack, and Hamas called all the Israeli Arabs to join the attack, and the hope of the Hamas was that they would join, and the Palestinians from the West Bank and the Hezbollah from Lebanon, and this would be the end of Israel. So I can tell you personally, I was really, really nervous on the first days. We didn't get out of our house. We didn't know what's going to happen. And then we see that, yes, there are some voices that are identifying with Hamas and glorifying Hamas, but the dominant voice that we hear from the Israeli Arabs is, we are together. We want to build something together. We want to build our life together here. And how do we see that? There was statistics that was done around the Israeli Arabs, and 80% of them condemned the attack of Hamas. It's something that unfortunately we can see around the world. And how could this be? I think there are different answers to that, but one of them I think is very simple. Just as us Jewish Israelis were shocked by the cruelty, the unbelievable cruelty that no one could even imagine in his nightmares, they saw this and they were shocked just as the rest of us. And they could only imagine what would happen to them if they were under Hamas, or if Hamas takes over and they would become under Hamas. So they understand that they don't want it. They understand that they want their life here, that they have all the rights that they have here in Israel. They start volunteering. This guy with the bicycles, he gave right on the next day 50. He had the bicycles shop in the Arab village in Taiba. So some of the Israeli Arabs live in Arab villages, some live in mixed cities like Akko, like Jaffa. And he donated 50 bicycles to the displaced people from the kibbutzes and the cities. And it was such a sweet gesture. It's sad because then the next day his shop was burned by extremists, that rejected what his act. But then Israelis collected money to give him to. So it was a whole a very special move. We see on the top pictures that in Rahat, a Bedouin town in the Negev, they started a center to collect food for the displaced people. We have to understand that many of in this attack, there are 6 Bedouins, Muslim Arabs that were kidnapped. There are another few who were killed, were murdered. There's even a person that it's a movie of Hamas that he identifies as an Arab from East Jerusalem. He speaks with them in Arabic and they still slaughter him. So they really understand that we are all in this. It's so terrible to say this, but this, we're all in this together. And another unbelievable thing, there were a few Bedouins who really risked their lives and saved. There are a few that drove people from the party back and forth when there were shots under their, all around them. And they are risking their life and saving tens and tens of Israelis from the party. Some of the Bedouins joined the IDF, so there were also a few soldiers, at least two that I remember, that saved people and were killed in the battles with the terrorists. So it's a turning point. It's a turning point, definitely, in the relationship between Jewish Israelis and Arab Israelis, Israeli citizens within Israel. And the two people that I have to mention before I go to the next is the ones on the right. This guy Yosef Haddad, maybe you've seen his name. He's an Israeli Arab Christian. He grew up in Nazareth. He served in the IDF. There are most of the Muslim Arab don't serve in the army, with the exception of the Bedouins, that more of them do, but some more from the Christian Arab joined the IDF. Still, most of them don't, but he decided to join, and he was in the Second Lebanon War in 2006, got badly injured. His friends, Jewish friends, rescued him under fire, risked their lives for him, and which what they do. That's what they do in every battle. And after that, he decides that he's going to dedicate himself to create, strengthen the connection between the Israeli Arabs and the Jews. And he's doing all these things for Israel to explain Israel to the world. And what happened since this happened, he already had a lot of followers on Instagram and the social media. But now, it's close to 500,000 followers, and he's kind of the spokesperson of Israel, explaining its action and all the lies and all the incitement and all the that is going on all around the world. And it's very special that he's an Israeli Arab that is doing it, and everyone here is hugging him. The love for him is beyond words, and people don't stop hugging him. And I think also Israeli Arabs that sees him and sees the relationship of the Israeli society with him gives them a good hope for life together. The second person I want to mention is Mansour Abbas. He's the head of one of the Arab Israeli parties in the Israeli parliament. He got into politics just a few years ago. He was part of the coalition, part of the government of Naftali Bennett. That was a government just for 1 year between the Netanyahu's government. And he is the only one that condemned, severely condemned the Hamas massacre out of the Israeli Arabs, Knesset representatives, out of the Israeli Arab politicians. There was just one more person, but he's part of a party called Meretz, which is mainly Jewish. So it's maybe a slightly different story. And it's a huge thing. He's a Bedouin, and it's a huge lead what he's doing. I have to say that one of the members of his party, the other members of his party are not as peaceful as him. And she just yesterday denied that there was a massacre. And there was a massacre of babies and women, even though, there's all the footage that Hamas published. And he responded to her and said that she needs to quit and she needs to leave the government. It was a very powerful response. And then she apologized. So this is also an interesting figure to follow. And then towards the end, some light in this whole thing, a wedding of a couple from Be'eri that had a date. The date was, I think it was a week and a half ago. It was just a week and a half after the massacre. And they had a venue, and they had the invitation, and they had the catering, and they had everything. And they're now with a lot of the people from their community are murdered or kidnapped, and they are in hotels near the Dead Sea because they're displaced from their homes, and they decide to have the wedding in spite of. And everyone volunteers to arrange the wedding for them. My friend Ilan was the photographer, volunteered to be the photographer, but everyone, like from the food to the production, and we see they're getting arranged in the picture on the right, getting arranged. So we see all these bags. These are all the things that people sent, food for the displaced people. We see like cereals there, and like endless things that people sent to them. So we see this right outside the place where they're getting arranged to the wedding, and we see the images on their faces. It's not easy. But they decide to choose life. And another wedding of a same story, a couple that had all the planning, all the venue, with everything arranged, but they're both officers in the IDF, and they were both recruited to do reserves. So they decide to just celebrate without the dress, without all of this, in the area near the border with Gaza, when they're getting arranged and trained to go in, with all the friends, and just their close family came for the wedding. And these are not the only two. There are many. I mean, more than 10 that already happened like that since October 7. The last photo I want to show before I want to open it up for a few questions, and then I'm just gonna have another last picture for the sum up. Is I want to quote something to give us hope, because the only thing that Israelis, and I know that also you can't stop thinking about, are the kidnapped babies and old people and soldiers that are now in Gaza, and we can't fall asleep at night. I can't look at my kids sometimes. If they cry, it makes me cry, because I think of these kids that are crying there. So it's unbearable. And there are a few verses in the book of Jeremiah in the Tanakh, and these are very famous verses for Israelis. It is quoted all the time. People know them by heart, and it's part of a song of a famous musician called Idan Reichel. I might send the song to you at the end, and I'm going to read it in Hebrew and English to give us hope and to pray for them together. כה אמר אדוני, קול ברמה נשמע, נהי בכי תמרורים. רחל מבכה על בניה, מענה להנחם על בניה, כי איננו. כה אמר אדוני, מנעי קולך מבכי ועינייך מדמעה, כי יש שכר לפעולתך, נאום אדוני. ושבו מארץ אויב, ויש תקווה לאחריתך, נאום אדוני, ושבו בנים לגבולם. A voice is heard in Ramah, mourning and great weeping, Rachel weeping for her children and refusing to be comforted because they are no more. This is what the Lord says: restrain your voice from weeping and your eyes from tears, for your work will be rewarded, declares the Lord. They will return from the land of the enemy. So there is hope for your descendants, declares the Lord. Your children will return to their own land. That's it for now. I wanna hear a few questions before we wrap it up with the last screen. Shelley, maybe you want to read. Maybe there were things that people asked on the chat I can relate to, or if people want to ask differently.
People should feel free to just write any questions in the chat, but I'm just going to share a question that has come up a lot in the Google form. And one of the questions that's come up is, in from our viewpoint in America, or from our seat in America, we can contribute money and to the funds and the things that we value most around Israel. But what else can we do to stand in solidarity with Israel?
Yes. So first of all, it's a question that we also ask ourselves every day that we wake up in the morning, because you feel so helpless. And the interesting thing is that, the morale among the soldiers and also among the volunteers is the highest, because they are doing something. They are in action, and they feel that they're so, it's crazy. You're a soldier, that you're about to do something so dangerous, and you're risking your life, and you have your whole family waiting for you. And yet they don't stop smiling and laughing and singing and dancing together. So first of all, I have to say that this feeling of helpless is something that a lot of us share. I can say two main things, maybe. The donations are a great thing. The Israeli economy right now is not in a good situation. I don't think we even know exactly what its situation right now. I can only see that the shekel versus dollar, the shekel dropped tremendously, and we see so many people that don't have a job. It's not just my field of tourism, it's a lot of many other fields, or many other people who can't work because they are displaced from their home. And I believe that, purchasing Israeli products and supporting the Israeli economy in different ways to move the wheels of the economy is something very important. Aside with that, the thing that Israelis are occupied with all the time is this shock that the world is that many parts of the world are inside these lies. They don't, there's so much ignorance, and there's so much incitement, and we see what is happening with the outbreak of anti-Semitism everywhere in the world. And the way I understand, there's a lot to say about it, and I think it's a whole topic for a different talk. But in some cases, it was also maybe shouldn't surprise us as much, because anti-Semitism for many years, it was hiding behind anti-Israel, being anti-Israel, and this was okay, to be like that around the world. And then all of a sudden the masks are taken off, and we see that it's going way deeper, and we see that this anti-Semitism raised its ugly head, and we need to knock this head down. And the way to do it is it's an ongoing work. A lot of leaders around the world, that's a surprising thing, presidents and prime ministers of countries around the world, they understand the truth. So many of them. If it's not, the first in this list is of course Joe Biden, but it's the Prime Minister of England, and the Chancellor of Germany, and the President of France, and of so many other countries. They know the details, they understand the situation, they are informed with all the information, and they're not fed by lies in the social media. So my hope or recommend is that people will get as much educated as they can. And you can find 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 posts with videos or things that people write that speaks to you, that you think that explains the situation the best, and spread them to people who are sitting on the fence, the people who are inside the hate, deep in the hate, deep in this sect, we're not going to fix them right now, but the people who really don't know much about, these are the people that we need to turn to. And, I saw some moves of wealthy Jews who took out their investments in Harvard and all these. These are important moves in my eyes, because we can't be silent to that, because it's only going to grow. It's like this high commander said, Barak Hiram, if we'll continue to ignore the problems, it's not going to disappear. It's just going to get bigger. So we need to take action, and each person in the place where he or she feels comfortable at. I think these are the two main helps that
Dafna,
we
I'm going
can
to ask one
go
more
for.
question to represent the group. Just as a curiosity, you have 3 kids and you live in with your husband. What is your day-to-day life? Are people spilling out onto the streets and going to restaurants? Is there a bustle? Is it quiet? Just to give us a quick sense of what the daily life is, even just in your neighborhood.
Yeah. Everything is way more quiet. In the first 2 weeks, when it was under the complete shock, and there were no schools, no kindergarten, everyone were in their homes, and there were sirens. I live south of Tel Aviv. It was sirens all the way up to Tel Aviv and north of Tel Aviv, a few times a day. So you were afraid to leave your house because you don't know where it's going to catch you, and if there's a bomb shelter there. Some houses, the new apartments, I think apartments that were built after 1990, or I don't remember the year, it was mandatory to build a room it's called mamad. It's a bomb shelter inside your house. My apartment is 60 years old, so it doesn't have it. So we have a bomb shelter 3 stories down. So every time there's a siren, we need to run there. We have a minute and a half to run there. We don't always make it. When the kids are awake, we make it. When they're asleep, we need to wake them up and run with them. And it happens many times when we finish, put them into sleep. It takes us like 2 hours, and then half an hour has passed, and we need to wake them up and run to the shelter. So now, a week ago, the schools came back. Like the kids are in schools, not every day because they don't have enough shelters. So they split these, like Aleph, Bet, Gimel. These classes can come on these days, and these classes can come on these days. But everyone understood that for the sanity of everyone, the parents and the kids, we need to return to school. Even if there's a danger that a siren would catch you on your way to school or something, it's more important that they would have the routine, and they will meet their friends, and they won't be with their parents that are, some of them are crying all day or don't know what to do with themselves. So that's it. All restaurants pretty much are closed. There are some cafes that are partially open, but people are very sad. People don't feel comfortable to celebrate anything. I went to Shabbat dinner last Friday, and my friends offered us wine, and it took me like half an hour to decide if I'm going to drink wine. It's yeah. So it's way more quiet than the usual because people are not doing the regular things, and people are all the time connected to the news to see what is happening because it's developing all the time. And to add to that, so many of the men are on reserves. So many. I mean, my husband has passed the age, so he's not on reserves. But so the rest of my friends, they're alone. They're alone in their home with the kids because all the men are on reserves. So it's not easy. That's it pretty much.
Can I ask you a question, Dafna?
Yes, of course.
So, on the news, obviously, we're only getting partial of what is going on. And we keep hearing about they want to cease fire so that they can get humanitarian, over there to take care of the Palestinians. It's always on their side. But don't we know that Hamas is keeping all of this food and all of this stuff that we're sending over there? The people aren't getting it. Hamas is taking it. Am I correct?
Completely. I mean, this
Yeah.
whole war is Israel trying, and this is the truth, you know. How can I explain that this is the truth? You know, it's all my friends that are there. That Israel is trying to not hurt innocent people and civilians
Right.
in Gaza, and Hamas, their whole warfare, you know, they are cruel to their people just as much as they're cruel to us. It's hard to understand that. You know, that Sinwar, their leader who planned this whole attack, before he hurt even the first Israeli, he was called the chopper from Khan Yunis because he was chopping his people. He said he suspected that they're not with him. So they're using their people, their whole warfare is under hospitals. They're using our weakest point when they know we're not going to hurt hospitals and kindergartens and schools and mosques. And this is exactly where their headquarters are. And this is why Israel can't just operate from the air. We're risking our lives, the soldiers' lives, to go and try not to hurt as much as possible. Now, Israel is asking for a month now to all the people in the northern part of Gaza to go to the southern part of Gaza, because most of the infrastructure of Hamas is in the northern part, although they have also in the south. And, you know, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians are already left. Some don't leave. They're scared to leave. They're scared they will get killed by Hamas because they left. Some just don't want. Some are Hamas cooperators or families or supporters. So people don't understand the level of how complex it is for Israel to fight against it. And they don't understand that, you know, the people in Gaza are suffering for Hamas in a way, you know, it's horrible. And you know, and it's also a problem because so many of them support Hamas because they were the education system since 2006, and all they taught their kids is huge amount of hate and anti-Semitism and hate against Jews, against the West, bloodshed. All they dream of when they're little kids is to be a shaheed, to kill people, to kill themselves, violence, cruelty, you know. So what can you do with it? So I think it needs a whole different talk to explain exactly what is happening, you know, army-wise. But there's a lot of interviews that Israelis are having and explaining this. Our former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett and many others, and Yosef Haddad that I've mentioned earlier, and you can get information from the Israeli side because the media, you know, it's
Terrible.
so
Yeah.
biased in so many cases.
So
Yes.
Dafna, I'm going to interject here. I know that our time is almost up, and I want to give you a chance to share your last slide. And I also want to thank everybody on the Zoom call for their participation and their contributions and their openness to learning and just being part of the diaspora who supports Israel so much. And we send you our love and our support, and, you know, we're all one. And I just want to thank you so much before you say your goodbyes to all of us, and thank everybody.
Yes. I'm really thanking you all from the bottom of my heart for your care, for your sensitivity, for really, I'm just sending a huge hug to each and every one of you, truly. And I want to end with a prayer for the IDF. I put up a kind of a funny picture that was taken a week ago. These are reserve soldiers. They're not in their regular service. They have families, and some of them have kids. They have businesses. They're studying. They're doing all sorts of things. They left everything behind, and they came in reserves. And somehow it was kind of started with a joke, and they all decided they had to shave, so they all decided to leave a mustache, and not just them, like thousands of reserve soldiers just for the joke. And we have a prayer for the soldiers of the IDF, and I'm gonna read it in Hebrew, and I want to welcome you. I'm not gonna read the English, so I want to welcome you to follow, to read the English as they read the Hebrew. מי שברך אבותינו, אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, הוא יברך את חיילי צבא ההגנה לישראל ואנשי כוחות הביטחון, העומדים על משמר ארצנו וערי אלוהינו, מגבול הלבנון ועד מדבר מצרים, ומן הים הגדול עד לבוא הערבה, ובכל מקום שהם ביבשה, באוויר ובים. ייתן אדוני את אויבינו הקמים עלינו ניגפים לפניהם, הקדוש ברוך הוא ישמור ויציל את חיילינו מכל צרה וצוקה ומכל נגע ומחלה, וישלח ברכה והצלחה בכל מעשה ידיהם, ידבר שונאינו תחתם ויעטרם בכתר ישועה ובעטרת ניצחון, וקוים בהם הכתוב, and this is a quote from Deuteronomy, the last one, for it is the Lord, כי אדוני אלוהיכם ההולך עמכם להילחם לכם עם אויביכם להושיע אתכם, ונאמר אמן.
Amen.
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 Thank you, everybody.
Can I
I hope-
say one thing though before you hang up, Shell?
Yes.
Literally, it'll take 2 seconds. Dafna, we hear that in the IDF in particular, that a lot of sort of secular soldiers are taking on some of the mitzvot. They might be putting on tefillin, or they might be wearing tzitzit, or just that there's sort of an increase in observance is probably not the recognition of God or a prayer to God to help in all of this. And I went to a program yesterday, and somebody who I respect very much was talking about like when we go on a subway, you know, you hold the subway strap on top and you're like holding on for dear life, right? And what she said was, we hold on up here so we don't fall down here. So like we're holding on to a
Beautiful.
connection to God with the hope that it helps us survive down here. And I just thought that that was something beautiful that I wanted to share before we all hung up. That imagery to me is very powerful.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
It's true.
Beautiful idea.
Thank you, Dafna.
I think I'll follow up with an email with links to ways we can contribute and help support Israeli companies. I know there's events in Bergen County on Sunday at Frisch High School with Israeli vendors. So I will send all that out. And I thank you all very much. And Am Yisrael Chai.
Am Yisrael Chai.
Hi.
Be well, everybody.
Thanks, Dafna.
Thanks, Dafna.
Dafna, thank you.
Well.
Kol hakavod.
Thank you.